When we first started hearing about a pandemic in December, I wasn't really paying attention to it very much, quite frankly. In late January, Justin Culley came to me, our safety coordinator, came to me and said, I think we should sit down and talk about what we're going to do if a pandemic comes. And still can't believe to this day, I laughed and I said, there's not going to be a global pandemic. Nothing's going to happen. We're going to be fine. Like, let's meet when it happens. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, we were sitting down having a major meeting about a pandemic probably coming into the US and spreading very quickly. So my first thoughts were sort of disbelief and thinking we didn't have to do anything to prepare. And then when it became apparent that it was going to be, shut everything down, we had to spring into action very quickly. We knew that our students were suffering at home. Not suffering in the grand sense of the word, but locked down at home with not much to do on a screen. Like, that is not an optimum situation for any teenager, right? So our goal from the very beginning was to get back into school. And that was our mindset as we planned, is we're gonna get school ready to open. And we didn't know if that would be September or January or when it would be, right? But that was our goal. And our goal was to be ready to open school by the time we were actually supposed to open school in August. So be ready for that, just in case.
Transportation, testing, keeping people safe in classrooms, where do you teach, how do you teach, all of that. Everything was a challenge. So, to enumerate all of it, just everything you do at school was a challenge. Every system that we have has to be completely thrown out, and we don't know what we're going to do.
We got to the end of the year, and then all summer, I don't think anyone on my staff took a vacation last summer. Honestly, I would say we probably worked on an average 15-hour days all summer, just trying to get up and ready. It was like remaking a school in 3 months because everything had to be different. One of the hardest parts about all of it was we have 84 adults who come to work every day who really were offering to put themselves in the line of fire if we were coming back, right? Because we didn't have any vaccines yet. Adults are much more likely to get it and get very sick than teenagers. And there was risk to you all as well.
There were times throughout the year, we literally felt like we were putting our lives on the line to bring students back to school. There's never been a time, in my 18 years in schools as a teacher administrator where I felt like we were risking our lives, or I was asking my colleagues to risk their lives to teach.
What we were trying to balance is sort of like the risk scenario. Is it too big of a risk to come back to campus? Because really it's, it could be someone's life. Or is the risk bigger to just stay at home because of the detriment to our students?
So really, one of the biggest issues that came up right off the bat was that everyone I would say that certainly the nation, but certainly also the world, was scrambling to get things that we would need to enable people to be on campus safely. Whether it was gloves, masks, hand sanitizer, the portable hand washing stations around campus, you name it, it was just about impossible to get. The canopy tents that we had, all of that stuff had either been completely bought up or just simply wasn't, no one could keep up with the demand that people were placing on it. And so I sourced a lot of stuff at the beginning from China Direct. I went through Alibaba and negotiated directly with vendors because you couldn't get anything in the United States.
The most influential variable was maintaining the integrity of the cohorts. As you may recall, we had to give up the course of study that was planned for this year in order to cohort students at each grade, which it meant fewer course offerings, less choice for students. But maintaining the integrity of those groups was critical.
We had to think about not only the academic schedule, but the lunch schedule, how to get lunches to you safely, the transportation schedule, we had to modify all the carpool rules, and then getting kids back home at the end of the day. And we realized that no two students have exactly the same schedule, right? So we had 320 different schedules that we had to align as best we could into a trackable way.
And that's why they put together these larger groups of primarily grade level-ish cohorts within which the students would, move around to different classes. But they were always kind of with the same 70 or 80 students-ish, in some mixing thereof. And that's how the original cohort was designed. At the beginning, of course, we were delivering lunches, and there were good reasons behind this. We said, look, there's no way to keep things hot. We've got to eat outside. We're not having students eat inside. It's got to be outside if you're going to be unmasked so that it's well ventilated. And so we said, let's shift to a system of food that doesn't have to be heated up. So wraps and sandwiches and you name it, salads and such. And they delivered them in the red bags, and we came up with the lunch cohort system, which was the same. It still is actually as those, B block or E block, whichever is your middle class of the day. That's the same group you're going to go eat lunch with. So we don't have to create a new group of people. So that worked out really well. And then that morphed to, moving to hot lunch. And so we developed the line system that we have now, where students simply pick up their lunch and then walk with their lunch to the cohort location so that the food is nice and hot, and we can expand the menu options, still using the same groupings, still keeping distance, et cetera, but now we were able to fold hot lunch into the mix. And I think people, if I had to pick one thing in the pandemic that was the most gratifying, was seeing people having hot lunch on those first days. I think that was probably the most enjoyable experience in the whole pandemic.
We just had to sort of throw our transportation rules out the window and, have people get here in ways that made them and their families comfortable.
How are we going to think about getting students back using carpools? That's when they started thinking about the e-bike program and encouraging students to travel solo with e-bikes. Every possibility to reduce the density of students in vehicles coming and leaving campus.
We had to change transportation providers this year because the one we used last year couldn't accommodate all these new rules. So we had to work to get all of our routes aligned. We worked with some parents on that to really optimize, where the buses would travel, how they would pick up kids, and then how many kids could be on each bus. So really it was about making sure we could get all of the kids to school in a safe way, given guidance that we were told we had to follow.
We were testing, again, very, very, very early on. I don't know if we were the earliest, but I'm sure we were among the very earliest to be doing that. But we had to contract out before this was really a model that was being used, we had to figure out, well, is there an organization that will contract out with a school?
We worked with 7 different companies until we settled on the one we have. And, there were some that were really organized, some that were really unorganized.
I mean, just thinking about a testing protocol, right, for COVID testing. We didn't know at the time what the right interval was. Was it daily, weekly, bi-weekly, 3 times a month? So we had to bring in medical advisors to think about the testing cycle, and would we make it mandatory or not? Obviously, we made it mandatory.
There was even questions about, well, is insurance covering it? There were just a million questions. But the decision was, it's important. It's going to provide a sense of security to people that were testing, that's going to help us convince our community to come back, because that will help them feel safe that we are testing. And so that was deemed very important.
when I look back, I think, I feel a tremendous sense of pride in the whole community for rallying together to make it happen. Because I couldn't have done it by myself. My staff couldn't. Everybody had to be in it to make it work, right? So the students had to do their part, parents had to do everyone had to do their part, and everyone did. And so I'm really proud of that, because I think it says a lot about the community. I think it says a lot about the people who work here and how committed they are.
An unprecedented amount of collaboration between departments that maybe historically haven't worked closely. And it could have only been done with those sort of partnerships. The tech office and Justin and Cecile were central to making sure that we could deliver not only the devices, but the professional development in a way that supported classroom teaching. So it's, as I sit here in May, I still haven't had time to reflect on the year, but it's been a pretty extraordinary undertaking.
Thank you.